I'm Nikki and welcome to the Preppy Possum. Today I'm going to lead you step by step through a painting. All right, let's paint a cotton field. So let's start out by grabbing a huge brush. So grab like a number 1 and dry it off. And we'll grab a lot of really light blue. So whatever really light blue you have, with even a teeny tiny bit of seafoam. And we're gonna start by jumping down at least 4 or 5 inches from the top of your canvas, however much sky you want. But I like our field to be a little bit bigger. So I'm just gonna hop down like 4 or 5 inches and throw a little line across. So 4 or 5 inches, throw your little line across, and then I'm gonna grab more of that light blue with a little seafoam, and I'm just gonna throw a layer in through my whole sky. So just grab a lot of paint and go for it. And don't worry if it's a little streaky, we can come back and thicken it up. But just to get us some paint on there. All right, so we got us a good little layer through our sky. I would even add a few more seafoam streaks. I felt like it was a little too light. Okay, now let's go ahead and wipe that one off a little bit, and let's grab some dark brown. So you want a lot of really dark brown. And we're gonna go ahead and throw us a layer in through the whole bottom. We're gonna have some rich soil for our cotton. So through our whole field, for our first little layer, our cotton's really gonna jump out against this dark brown. And whenever you're filling this part in, it doesn't matter which way your brush strokes go, because we're gonna come back and add our cotton rows. So just use a lot of paint. You just want to make sure you take it all the way to the bottom edge. All right, we've almost got a whole layer through our field. So once you get your little layer in through the field, and make sure you take it all the way up to your sky. You don't want to leave any white in between. Then we'll go ahead and wipe that one off on the paper towel. And chunk it in the water. Now let's go ahead and throw a few trees up here on the other side of our cotton field. We're gonna have a few trees. So I would start with a teeny tiny brush, so like a number 1, and dry it off, and grab some dark brown. And you can throw as many trees as you like, but I kind of like having them off-centered, so I'm just gonna throw a few over here at the top right. But we're just gonna start with like a little trunk with a few little branches, because you're not gonna see many of your branches. We're gonna come back in and throw a lot of green. So I'm probably just gonna throw like 5 or so trees, but a little, you know, off-centered over here to the right. So once we have our trunks, let's go ahead and wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. And let's grab like a number 6 size brush and dry it off. And we're gonna grab some dark green. So you want some dark green with even a little bit of black. And now through the tops of all of our trees, we're gonna throw some little bumps. So whenever you do this, you want to load your brush with a lot of paint and kind of hit it with the side of your brush. So the trick is to have a whole bunch of paint on there and then just to dab it with the side. And we're going to throw all the little dabs on here with a dark green first, and then we can come back with some light to kind of highlight. So once you have a little bit of dark through like the tops of all your trees, then we're gonna throw just a little bit of dark right here at the bottom, because you're gonna have some little bushes there, like a little hedge. It's just kind of where the trees touch the field. You wanna have a few little bumps. Just a little hedgerow. And then once we have that, we have all of our dark, we have our little hedgerow. Let's go ahead now and add a little bit of light green. So just kind of grab some slimy limey and dark green together with that same size brush. And now we're gonna throw a little bit of light through all the trees, but I would do it like more towards like the left-hand side, just so it kind of looks like the light's kind of coming in. And don't worry, like we can come back and bump again too. If these aren't showing up, we can let it dry for a little bit and come back. But it's gonna go on a little bit lighter. It'll dry a little bit darker than it goes on. All right, so we have us a little bit of light. So now let's wipe that one off. So rinse it out, and let's use like that same size brush, so number 6, and dry it off. And we're gonna grab some bright white, and now we're gonna make the start of our cotton rows. So I would kind of start somewhere like a little bit off-centered, a little bit left to center. And I'm gonna start by throwing a bumpy little line straight down. So that's going to be one of my rows, because we're going to kind of fatten it up, but that's going to be a row of cotton. And then right there to the left of it, I would throw you a bumpy little line that kind of leans towards the bottom left, just to get you the start of a row. We'll do the same thing on the right hand side, maybe throw you one that leans towards the right. And then I would go ahead and over here on the left hand side, we're going to still leave a little space in between, but let's throw us a few more rows. Because all these, since they're closer to us, are going to be thicker, and then these will kind of blend in more like just a sea of cotton. But we'll kind of do like another little bumpy row. And then up here will probably be like all cotton. And the same thing with over here on the right. We'll probably be able to see like a little bit of a row. And then I'll probably go to all cotton up here. So let's start with our middle row. It's going to start out bigger and get smaller as you go to the top. So we have all of our starts of our rows. So load your brush with a lot of white, and I'm going to skip around and just throw some bumps. So whenever you're doing this, you want to load your brush and kind of dab with the side of it. So you don't want to stab it. You just want to load your brush and kind of dab with the side. And we're going to have it bigger, so kind of the row thicker towards the bottom because of perspective. And then it's going to come in as it goes up. So you want it to get skinnier as it goes up. So we're just going to keep doing that. It's going to get thinner. I would maybe even make it a little bit thicker towards the bottom, so I'm going to keep throwing a few cotton just kind of off the edge. And make sure you have some that go to the very bottom too. But we're just going to kind of give the impression of a cotton field. They're so pretty. So we're just kind of dabbing. And we'll come back in and throw some brown too for all the little leaves. But I think that's a good start to one of our rows. And then we'll do the same kind of thing over here. Actually, let's start over here on the right. It looks a little bit more dry with the white. So we're going to keep it skinnier at the top, and it just gets thicker as it comes down. So we're going to make our cotton row kind of bigger over here. Same thing with your dabs. Your dabs can be a little bit bigger at the bottom, and then they can get like a little bit, like barely touch as you get to the top. It's a lot of dabbing, a lot of cotton. I wish I had all this cotton. But we're going to do just like we did before with that first row. You just want to keep it kind of skinnier. And don't worry if you like get it painted in too solid, because we're going to come back and dab with that other brown. But that's probably a good start to that big row. Now let's kind of throw us this start to this row right above it. So we just skipped a little smidge. And this you're going to kind of lose the row and just kind of see the field. So we're just going to dab all above it. So just skip all through your dark brown up here, and it's just gonna be tons of little dabs. They can get smaller as you work your way up. We're gonna take it all the way to the dark green, but right now our dark green's still a little wet. So we're just gonna get all the big areas. First, and then we can come back and get the little ones. All right, well that's a good start to that top part. So then we're gonna grab a little bit more white, and now we're gonna thicken up this row. So you want it more cotton at the bottom, and then it's just gonna get skinnier as it goes up. I was getting a little bit, trying to leave that line pretty straight in between. So if it gets a little curved, just add you a few more bumps. And then we'll do the same thing with this row. Make it a little bit bigger towards the edge. And then we'll just kind of skinny it up. And then this side, since it's a little bit more dry, we can go ahead and take that cotton all the way, take our little dabs all the way to the sky. All right, so we kind of have the rows, and then it goes into the field. And then hopefully our green's still a little wet, so we'll come back and hit that again in a little bit. But let's go ahead now and wipe off our extra. You don't have to rinse it out, just kind of wipe it off. And now where we had the dark brown, we're gonna come back with dark brown and a little bit of milk chocolate brown. So you want mostly dark with a little milk chocolate, and we're just gonna bump all in between there. And that's just gonna kind of give us the look more of soil, so it won't be quite as flat. So it's just that dark brown with a little bit of like a medium milk chocolate on like a number 6 size brush, and just kind of bump everywhere where you had like the soil, so in between those rows. So these big sections, so it won't be quite as flat. Will give us a little bit of texture. So just darker browns, and just kind of bump. So we have a good little start to our soil. Got it kind of textured up. So now let's add a little bit of like the leaf look in through our cotton. So we're gonna use that same size brush is good. Or actually, let's switch out to a smaller. So just wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. And let's grab a little bit smaller brush. It's like a number 4. And dry it off. And we're gonna use some milk chocolate and caramel brown together. And now all through our rows, they're gonna start out bigger and get a little bit smaller, but we're gonna throw some dabs with this color. And you wanna really skip around so it's not too perfect. Try not to think about it too much. But we're just gonna throw a few more, like some bigger ones towards the bottom, and then they get a little bit smaller. It's just kind of giving that impression of the leaves. And don't worry if you're getting too wild with this, because we're gonna come back with some white. With the same, like brush in some white and throw some of those. So don't worry if you're getting a little too wild. But you just want some bigger bumps towards the bottom. And really skip around. I know it sounds crazy, but when you do stuff like this, sometimes the faster you do it, the better it looks. You don't have time to really think about it and place it perfectly. And then up here through our field, we're gonna throw a bunch. So up here where the part where the rows start kind of blending in, we're gonna throw a bunch through there. A bunch of tiny ones. Going crazy with them. And we'll do the same kind of thing through these little rows over here. So you want to start out with a few. We're just kind of giving that impression of cotton. So these are like our little leaves and stems that are peeking through. So don't worry if you're throwing too much brown. We can come back and throw a few more dabs of white. All right, now let's wipe that one off and we're gonna let it dry for just a second. So let's keep on using like a number 6 size brush and dry it off and grab some more bright white. And now I would just add a few more white little splotches in a few places, just anywhere like if your brown got a little heavy. A few more little splotches. But I think it's looking pretty good. It looks like kind of the impression of cotton is what we're going for. And then up here at the top where it wasn't dry before, I would add you a little bit anywhere where you needed to add that. Same thing with the brown. You could go back and add that through the top. But I think we're pretty good, so let's go ahead and sign it. So just wipe that one off and chunk it in the water, and I'd grab like a number 1. Probably gonna grab like a sea foam or something. And we're just gonna sign. And now we have a cotton field. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Be sure to check us out. We're on Cox Street in Asheboro. And be sure to check out our website, www.thepreppypossum.com.